Hello everybody, welcome back to Various Oddities Showcase. It's been a while and today I have quite the guide for you. Various Oddities has recently updated to 1.16 and with it comes a dramatic overhauling of the 1.12 types system, which formerly allowed us to address certain effects to creatures and from creatures. Now I have a quick advisory here. This demonstration is being performed in a beta build of the mod and consequently there may be bugs and details are subject to change. Always check the wiki for the most recent information. You can find it via the CurseForge page. Our first question, of course, is what are types? Types are special values that refer to the basic properties of a creature, either being a type of mob or a specific player, based on those present in Dungeons & Dragons, specifically the 3.5 edition. They do not include activated abilities or special attacks and such, they are only the standard capacities and traits. This means that you will not find abilities like hurling an ender pearl, or punching someone and setting them on fire, or the like. Depending on the types a player has, their gameplay may be unchanged entirely or radically altered, allowing for players with different ideals in a given world to play alongside one another. Firstly, types are broken up into two categories: super types, of which there are 15, and subtypes, of which there are 60. As a rule, a given creature only has one super type and typically less than 3 subtypes, though this isn't actually heavily enforced by the code, so you can set whatever you like using commands. There are 3 general kinds of type. There's the functional types, which are able to create various different benefits and drawbacks, such as status effect immunity, new abilities, or extra health. There are the non-functional types, otherwise known as the do-nothing type, which don't have any inbuilt implications and are mostly suited for roleplay scenarios, though they may affect certain effects in the future. Lastly, there is the automatic types, which are applied based on the context of the creature in question, such as their current dimension. Some types are unable to do certain things, such as breathe, eat, or sleep. In most cases, these actions are drawn exclusively from supertypes, but subtypes can modify them. A creature can only perform actions shared by all of their types. For instance, a creature with multiple supertypes, of which only one can sleep, cannot sleep. Creatures that do not breathe cannot take suffocation or drowning damage even if they are buried in sand or stuck in a wall. Creatures that do not eat cannot ever take starvation damage, though they are still subject to the hunger status effect, as well as the requirement of a full hunger bar in order to regain health, if they are able to. Creatures that do not sleep cannot use beds to skip the night, but they also don't spawn phantoms due to sleeplessness, though they can still set their spawn point at a bed by right-clicking it as normal. Creatures that do not heal naturally will not recover health as a result of having high hunger, but they may still benefit from health and regeneration status effects. And now, the types. Of the types, the aberration, animal, giant, humanoid, monstrous humanoid, and such are non-functional supertypes. By default, a player is considered to be humanoid. Constructs have slightly more health, do not need to eat, sleep, or breathe, cannot suffer from critical hits, drowning, falling, poison, or paralysis effects, but cannot heal naturally. Dragons have more health and are immune to paralysis. Elementals are immune to critical hits, poison, paralysis, and don't need to eat, sleep, or breathe. Fae have slightly less health, but take 4 points less damage from generic sources unless they are silvered weapons or have the Silver Sheen enchantment. Magical beasts have slightly more health, but have no other effects. Oozes have slightly more health, are immune to critical hits, poison, and paralysis, and do not need to sleep. Outsiders do not need to eat or sleep unless they have the native subtype as well. Plants are immune to critical hits, poison, and paralysis effects, and do not need to sleep, though they are vulnerable to fire damage. One of the more dramatic types available, undead have more health, are immune to critical hits and poison, as well as paralysis, and do not need to eat, sleep, or breathe. But they are vulnerable to holy damage such as the Smite enchantment, and cannot heal naturally. Lastly, vermin are simply vulnerable to Bane of Arthropods effects. Of the subtypes, Augmented, Goblin, Reptile, and Shapechanger are non-functional. Air creatures are able to fly, and are unable to take falling damage. Aquatic creatures can breathe indefinitely in water, but cannot breathe indefinitely in air unless they have the amphibious subtype as well. This capacity He does benefit from the respiration enchantment as well as the water breathing effect, so consequently, the turtle shell is your best friend if you happen to be aquatic. Cold creatures are immune to cold damage but are vulnerable to fire damage, such as from the fire aspect enchantment. Earth creatures have a 30% mining speed bonus on stone or dirt type blocks, not simply just stone. This is mild and equivalent roughly to Haste 1. This does not affect their ability to harvest blocks, and mining stone with this ability will nonetheless still return nothing. Evil creatures are immune to evil damage but are vulnerable to holy damage. Fire creatures are immune to fire damage but are vulnerable to cold damage. This immunity also applies to lava. Holy creatures are immune to holy damage but are vulnerable to evil damage. One of the more drastic subtypes available is incorporeal, a type of ghost. Incorporeal creatures are able to pass through any block with at least one open face, though suffer significant visual impairment whilst doing so. Players are also rendered slightly transparent. Lastly, water creatures are very similar to aquatic creatures, but can still breathe air normally. The extraplanar and native types are applied to creatures depending on the dimension they initially spawned in, with extraplanar creatures being in a different dimension and native creatures being in the same dimension. The original dimension of a specific entity can be altered using the /types origin command, including changing it to a non-existent dimension in order to make a creature extraplanar indefinitely. Whether a creature is extraplanar or native can also be overridden by manually applying the appropriate subtype to them. And that is your comprehensive guide to the current situation with the types system of Various Oddities 1.16. Now, obviously, comparisons are heavy between this particular system and the Origins mod, which is available in Fabric, whereas this is available in Forge, and they do share a lot of similarities, but the main distinction is that the Origins mod does allow you to have various attacks and special abilities and such, whereas these could best be described as passive abilities exclusively. There is a plan for an abilities system to be appended to the type system in future, but this is not implemented at this precise time. Nevertheless, do enjoy using the type system. The video you just watched, as well as all of my content and projects, is supported entirely by my galaxy-brained and gorgeous patrons over on my Patreon. If you enjoy what I do and would like to get extra sneak peeks and fun treats, consider supporting me directly at patreon.com/lying.